Good afternoon and welcome to this new webinar from ERA, the European Union Agency for Railways. I'm Cyril Martin, Communication Officer, and I will be your moderator today. I'm very pleased to welcome you to the first ERA webinar of 2022. And as it is precisely the very first one of the year, and as we are still in January for a few days, let me first wish you, your families, and all the ones that are dear to you, a very happy new year. Today's webinar is the first of its kind. After another challenging year, still deeply affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, we wanted to move and look forward to provide an outlook to what is coming in 2022 for the agency. What's new this year? What is the agency's ambition? You may have noticed that we have recently updated our vision and mission statements. Why is that? Dear friends and stakeholders of ERA, dear European railway lovers, this webinar is for you. As usual, you are most welcome to ask questions to our speakers that I will introduce shortly, using the chat function, which you will find at the top right-hand corner of your screen. You can also tag questions from other attendees, which you judge valuable by clicking the thumb icon. We will do our best to reply to the greatest number of questions at the end of this webinar. A last word to say that this event is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel and our website in the coming days. Let me now introduce our distinguished speakers. First, Josef Doppelbauer, the Executive Director of the agency, will have a look back on 2021 and he will then talk about the outlook and highlights of 2022. Then, Guido, the head of Railway Systems Department at ERA, will give an outlook of 2022 from a technical perspective. Then, Iñigo Mendez, the head of Planning and Approval Delivery Unit at ERA, will talk about the authority activities of the agency. Finally, we'll have the pleasure to have a question and answer session with the participation of Philippe Citroën, the Director General of UNIFE, the European Rail Supply Industry Association. Thanks to all of you for your presence today. Without further ado, I will now give the floor to Josef Doppelbauer, the Executive Director of ERA. Please, Josef.
Many thanks, Cyril, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our first webinar in 2022, and also from my side, my best wishes. If we start the new year, of course, it is quite useful to look back on where we are coming from. And I need to admit that last year, 2021, has been a difficult year for all of us, but I believe we are now coming to the point where the various waves of COVID are really difficult to manage. So far, we had not seen any significant impact on the output of ERA, but the situation, of course, required and still requires strong management attention. And of course, our thoughts are with those colleagues and stakeholders who have suffered from the pandemic. Now, some highlights from 2021. We had a very strong workload on the authority tasks, meaning vehicle authorization, single safety certification, and ERTMS trackside approval. And Iñigo Mendez later this afternoon will give you more details on this subject. Also, we have made significant progress in our policy tasks related to technical specifications for interoperability, the TSIs, and also on the reduction of national rules. In 2021, we could complete the first cycle of monitoring of the national safety authorities, and we also had put a strong emphasis on communication and media. We had carried out a number of webinars, and this event today is the continuation of our ambition to remain in contact with our stakeholders. Last year, we also had the European Rail Safety Climate Survey, and unfortunately we had also to put a very strong activity on cyber security. If I may have the next slide, please. I would just give you a brief glance on what we did in the area of our authority tasks. In 2021, we have delivered more than 1,300 decisions on vehicle authorization, corresponding to almost 14,000 vehicles. This is a significant growth in comparison to 2020. We have delivered 41 safety certificates, so that's more than double what we delivered in 2020. And we have delivered 2 ETMS trackside approvals. Just to give you an impression on the overall figures, since we have taken up our new responsibilities in June 2019, we have taken 2,617 decisions on vehicle authorization, and we have authorized 30,128 vehicles. Now, if we go to the next slide, there we come back to the area of communication. And of course, 2021 was extremely important, being the highly symbolic European Year of Rail. And of course, as ERA, we were involved in the Connecting Europe Express, but we had also launched the so-called ERA Safety Climate Survey, which was the first survey of its kind in the rail industry in Europe, but we believe it was also the first survey of its kind in any industry. We have also ramped up in 2021 our activities in regard to social media, because specifically in a situation where we cannot meet in person, to stay in close contact with our stakeholders, in particular by the help of social media, is very important. If we go to the next slide, fortunately enough, we could also organize a major event in presence. Beginning of November, we could organize the European Rail Safety Days, and we were very happy to receive more than 250 participants. Of course, safety is an important subject, and therefore it's natural to have a very strong interest, but we also saw that the participants were extremely happy to have the opportunity to meet in person and to exchange in person. So we were very happy to have been able to organize this event, and also that we did not face any issue in regard to the pandemic situation. Briefly on the next slide, a short overview on the European Rail Safety Climate Survey. The idea behind was to give all participants of the European railway sector the possibility to share with us their feedback on how they feel about safety, climate, and safety culture. We received more than 46,400 questionnaires, and you can also see that we had many partner organizations who worked with us on launching the survey with their employees. In the first phase of the surveys, the survey was open to the partner organizations, and the second phase, starting in July, was of course open then to all rail professionals. Now, I would like to come to the current challenges and to where we as European Union Agency for Railways want to go together with the European sector. We know that one of the biggest challenges for Europe, but for all the population of our planet, is the climate change. And the European Green Deal therefore calls for a drastic reduction and for a substantial part of the 75% of inland freight that is carried today by road to shift to rail and inland waterways in order to save CO2 and other greenhouse gas emissions. In order to deliver on that promise, we need to build a European railway system which delivers on this goal. I repeat it again, rail has low energy consumption, low space consumption, and low CO2 emission. CO2 emission of rail in comparison to road is about a factor 5 to 10 lower. Of course, as European Union Agency for Railways, we have a strong contribution to this European transport agenda by making the single European railway area a reality, and of course the fourth railway package full implementation, which is now in place since the end of 2020, will help us there. On the basis of this challenge from the Green Deal, and Cyrielle has already mentioned it, we have updated our vision statement and our mission statement. So you can see this on the next slide, please. The key task that we have is that we make the train movement in the single European rail area frictionless. And in order to achieve this, we have defined the new vision for the agency. May I have the next slide, please? We would like to develop the European transport system towards a sustainable system without frontiers. So our statement is a sustainable, safe European transport system without frontiers. And from that, we derive the mission statement for ERA, moving Europe towards a sustainable and safe railway system without frontiers. On the next slide, we show you the 7 strategic statements that are directly linked to our mission and that are also the basis for our work program. The work program not only for 2022, but for the coming years in the multi-annual perspective. And of course, the first strategic statement is that we are working towards a situation where there will no longer be any technical or operational barriers to the free movement of people and goods by rail. On that basis, rail will become the backbone that supports an environmentally sustainable multimodal transport system. And also on that basis, rail will be favored as a transport mode by the new generation. Rail will become seamless, and mobility as a service and logistics as a service will be ensured, also including multi-leg ticketing. Safety, I already referred to the Safety Climate Survey and to the European Rail Safety Days. Rail will be increasingly safe and also secure as a secure mode of transport for users and employees. We are also, as a consequence of the climate change, seeing more and more natural disasters, and therefore we want to make sure that rail will be resilient and agile in responding to such emergency situations. Of course, in order to be this transport mode that is environmentally friendly, rail needs to become economically competitive, both as a mode and as a sector. And last but not least, our position in the world. We want to make sure that the European Union will become the global reference for rail, and finally that authorizations issued by the agency will be recognized globally. With that, on the next slide, I come to the outlook for 2022. Of course, Pio and Iñigo will give you the highlights of the technical side on the one hand, and this will be done by Pio Guido, but also on our authority activities, and Iñigo Mendez will give you all the relevant information there. I need to start our outlook to 2022 by again referring to COVID 2019. And the key question here is, how long will we be faced with the pandemic situation? Because we are eager, all of us are eager to return to a normal situation. It will be a new normal, but we want our lives back and we want our teamwork back. So our next priority is to continue our work on making ERA work as a team, and we continue the cultural transformation that we have also launched when we moved to the technical pillar of the Forest Railway Package. In regard to our authority activities, it is for us essential to arrive at the situation in which we can deliver authorizations and certifications in a sustainable way. And at the same time, we have important policy initiatives that come to fruition, hopefully in 2022. The TSI 2022 package, which will come to the vote in the risk committee in November, and in parallel the ramp up of the system pillar as a new key element in Europe's rail joint undertaking. And as ERA, we are of course strongly contributing to make this system pillar a game changer for innovating the European railway system. Internally, for making sure that we deliver, we need, of course, on the one hand, work as effective and efficient as possible, but we also need to secure the adequate resources and the adequate budget from our budget authorities. Last but not least, I have to mention the formal evaluation of the agency. This is a process that is foreseen in the ERA regulation. It's a process that will go on over the next 12 to 14 months. And I know that many stakeholders will be consulted. This evaluation is the opportunity to critically review the contributions of the agency, but also to suggest possible adjustments or new ways of approaching the tasks and activities of the agency. We have an ambitious program ahead of us. We are starting the year 2022 full of energy, and we are counting on the continuous good cooperation with our stakeholders in order to move rail forward, to make rail the backbone of the sustainable and also the economically efficient transport system that we need in Europe. Many thanks, and I hand back now to our moderator, Cyril.
Let me now give the floor to Guido, the head of the Railway Systems Department at ERA, who will give an outlook of 2022, but from a technical perspective. Please, Pio, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon also from my side. I think Josef, our director, has spelled very clearly our vision for the rail system and the role it can play inside the European transportation system. But in our daily work, and this maybe will be my colleague Iñigo will explain more, how we have first-hand experience still of the difficulties and the obstacles still present, still hindering the potential of rail in our vision for a sustainable, safe European system without frontiers. But 22, we see some important progress in this respect coming from the technical side. This is what I'm talking about here. Maybe the most visible element, as already mentioned, will be in June this year. We will finalize our recommendation for the TSI 2022 revision package. This is the result of more than 2 years of intense and productive work with hundreds of experts from all the sector organization and the safety authorities in our working parties, working groups, in the mirror groups, bringing back, integrating the valuable return of experience, the feedback they gained in those years applying TSIs and with the difficulties that they found. Work is still in progress, but in the final stages. Consultation will start in mid-March for 3 months until mid-June. And the plan is that the recommendation will be on the table of the Commission by the end of June. Content-wise, the priorities of the change request in this package were carefully assessed and prioritized, and they are aligned with the sustainable and smart mobility strategy. In particular, introducing those elements that contribute directly to the specific goals of making rail mobility more sustainable and greening freight transport. I will mention, for example, DAC, the digital automatic coupling in the lock and pass and the wagon TSI. This is something that we are doing, of course, in close collaboration with the EDDP, Shift to Rail, ATO, the provisions on combined transport, a new appendix in the wagon TSI, with the requirements applicable to combined transport and the harmonized methodology for the compatibility code. We are looking also at the EU-wide authorization for passenger coaches. This is something that is already possible today with the freight wagons, go everywhere. And the ambition, which is also what is communicated in the initiatives from the Commission, for example, on revitalizing the long-range passenger transport, night trains in particular, if we want to have a suitable fleet of rolling stock that can ensure this type of service around Europe, this EU-wide authorization is also one of the key elements for that. We will have also more clear definitions for the transitions regime for the rolling stock TSI, similar clarifications for the fixed installation subsystem, energy, infrastructure, more clear definition of what to do, how to apply the TSIs in case of upgrade and renewal. We will have other elements like the derailment detector functions. We will close a number of open points, and we are improving the content of the technical specification for interoperability on a number of areas. For telematic application, TAP and TAF, the recommendation has just been issued this week. they were also controlled and integrated in our way of working across different TSIs, but the calendar was a bit anticipated for them. For the CCS TSI, control, command, and signaling, and the EATMS specifications, we will introduce the game changers that were mature and resulting specifically from shift to rail work. We will also introduce provisions to strengthen the deployment requirement for ETCS, for example, obligations on member states, more precisely on the national implementation plans, availability of Class B systems. We will clarify the obligations for vehicles to be equipped with ETCS, with a transition phase for the Class B. Baseline 3 or above, I mean, what we call the system version 2 is what will be required in the case of upgrades, extension of area of use, and we will introduce provisions to balance better the interests between infrastructure managers and railway undertaking, for example, in the implementation of new functions, for example, ATO, automatic train operation, to make sure that there are compatibility windows of 7 years as we proposed, and that infrastructure manager should announce via RINF the new functionalities at least 5 years in advance. Also in this case, specifications will be improved, their maintenance will be facilitated. We are introducing one single set of specifications instead of the current 3 different sets that are difficult to maintain in parallel. We will retain in this single set all the different system versions, but in terms of organizing the specification, their review and their maintenance, this will simplify the life of our experts, the experts in the sector. Error corrections and transitions are also a provision that is in the CCS TSI, and we will also take stock of the direct feedback from the authorization experience. For example, for the clause on the partial fulfillment, which is today in the CCS TSI, partial fulfillment of ETCS specifications, this is something that we will clarify to avoid possible problems in the interpretation and then when assessing the application for authorizations. All in all, we will have a more robust and complete package of TSIs. This will enable us and the member states to look and concentrate, focus more on the other side of the coin, on the remaining national rules, and work aggressively to reduce them. National technical rules impact the design, the authorization of the vehicles. They cause additional cost, risk for the project. We made it already a priority to tackle the assessment of the national rules years ago. In 2016, when we started, we had more than 14,000 national rules. Today, less than 900. And we are continuing the effort with the concerned member states to further cut their number. In 22, we will have finalized the cleanup for rules for vehicles with all the member states. We will issue the remaining opinions. We address specific opinions to member states when we disagree, when we negatively assess the rules that are still at the member state level. We will ensure the member states, we will help them to ensure that the single rule database is up to date with the correct rules. Of course, we will give support to the Commission if the Commission, in dialogue with the member states, decide then to push more on the legal side with those member states to eliminate the rules on which the agency has expressed disagreement. And I'm not talking only of the technical rules, also safety operational rules are a barrier, a cost drivers. We will finalize in 22 also the assessments and cleaning of the national safety rules, starting follow-up activities, analyzing potential areas for further reduction, in particular focusing on what we call the Type 5 rules with a wider approach for the competence management. And in safety, I think that our director mentioned the success of the safety climate survey with more than 46,000 questionnaires received. Definitely, this is something that we will follow up with the further analysis of the result. We will prepare also for a further cycle of data collection or follow up if possible. And we will explore the possibility to provide this type of survey that can measure also the evolution of the sentiment or the appreciation of safety regularly as a service with partner organization. Also, we have developed a platform, a risk management platform in the frame of the transport of dangerous goods that is applicable not only for rail, but in general for all the transport modes when dealing with dangerous goods. And we have received interest from companies that would like to develop tools using the platform and offering this to operators. This is also a very good sign that we are helping rail to play on a more level playing field with other transport modes, and definitely within the resources that we have this year, we will try to support this initiative to use this type of risk management assessment across all transport modes. Again, subject to resources available and pending the adoption of the delegated regulation on the CSM ASLP. We want to start with the work of the group of analysts and with the testing of the tool for the information sharing system. We are currently working closely with EASA to use a CARES tool, the tool that was developed for aviation and maritime transport. And we are finding the way to test with some of the sector volunteers from the sector that could be the basis for the future ISS. Information sharing is essential to maintain the target state of rail safety and rail interoperability. I will just give the example of the JNS. Today, this is another key mechanism with the effectiveness which is proven in use. JNS will become an integral part of the arrangement that we have for the group of analysts in the CSM ASLP. This will help the overall efficiency gains of the agency and will give a strong support to continue this JNS activity that can bring concrete significant benefit to the rail sector and in a short time. Two current examples the JNS is working on are the restrictions for intermodal rail traffic on the Great Belt Bridge, which was a result of the accident in 2019 and of the successive incident, or the rules, the Italian limitations, speed limitations that are imposed for freight trains with composite brake blocks as a result of this thermal damage to wheels. I think that the work of the JNS is progressing fast on those two areas, and we see signs that the NSAs and the authorities are ready to mitigate or modify those heavy restrictions and regulations following the advice and the rules that have been developed by the JNS. There was a question, I think, in the panel on the safety conferences, and I think that's indeed building also on the success we had in the past. In 22, we are looking, if possible, in cooperation with ADIF to organize the International Rail Safety Conference. We're also looking at the possibility, again, in cooperation with EASA, to organize seminars on the human and operational factors. And internally in the agency, with the ERA Academy, we are starting the development of a structured module for training on safety culture, on human organizational factor, on accident investigation, SMS guidance. Of course, as a consequence of the TSI evolution, we will have to update also the application guides for the TSIs, and this is also something that we are looking had to do in an integrated manner within the umbrella of the Air Academy. Also, because we have finished the work for delivery of the revision package, we will not disband the working party that has helped coordinate all the activities in the revision package. On the contrary, we will keep this working party active because we have some change requests that are not yet integrated in this package. We will see also that the result of the cleaning up of the national technical rules will be assessed also in terms of specifying what is necessary in terms of specific cases in TSIs. And we will have some follow-up work definitely on the DAC, on the digital automatic coupling, because in the current TSIs, we are not sure if all the part related to the communication and the possible ecosystem also of applications that can be developed will be covered. And definitely in the OPE TSIs, we will have opportunities to harmonize all the operational concepts around the digital automatic coupling. New energy power systems like hydrogen trains are also an area that we want to explore with this working party that we will keep alive. With ETCS, we are developing a roadmap to assess and possibly classify the equivalence and eliminate the ESC, RSC, ETMS statement of compliance, so that we can reach further harmonization at this level. And all this, I think, is underpinned by this initiative ramping up of the system pillar that was already mentioned, which is an initiative of the Commission specifically inside the new joint undertaking with a specific role for the agency to play. The system pillar is there to ensure a more coordinated approach for the sector, to define the operational concept and the functional system architecture that we can all share so that we use most efficiently our scarce resources, to coordinate all different initiatives under one umbrella and to ensure that we have this alignment between research and innovation with the needs the railways have at operational functional level. And the role of the agency clearly is not only in the design of the architecture of the system in this phase, but I think that this target state is actively maintained during the long life cycle of the asset and the systems that we have in the rail. We need the active commitment of all responsible actors, and this needs the support of a recognized system authority. So there is still significant work to be done, but we will see some important milestone and very significant progress in 22. Thank you. This is the end of my intervention.
Thank you very much, Pio, and thank you for tackling some of the questions that were asked in the chat. Thank you.